Hey, checking in with Magic for Liars by Sarah Gilly. I think that is their name. So this is for chapters 6 to 21. A good hunk of the book, since I think there's only 28 chapters. It's a mystery, so just keep in mind that my mind does not work on mysteries very well. There has to be other elements that entice me, that capture me, for me to continue along. If it's just a mystery, it's just not going to do it for me. Now, this book actually has a kind of a cool thing, because I was talking about there's the Sam Spade crossed with kind of Harry Potter, just because it's a detective going into a school for young mages where there's a murder being committed. It's almost Sam Spade going to like Lev Grossman's Magicians, which was his sort of reaction to, probably more of a reaction to C.S. Lewis, but also sort of a reaction to the very kind of bright YA tones of Harry Potter. Kind of imagining a magic school that had actual modern day teenagers in it who were, kind of shitty and depressive and neurotic and just, were kind of squirrely and unlikable, like maybe actual teenagers are, or at least my version of teenagers would be, what kind of version of a teenager I was. And this has sort of got that as well, except I think Sarah Gilly is doing something where there's a part of this where there's the one sister who's gotten into the school, one sister hasn't. You could say, oh, this is like, telling something like from a Muggle point of view, but in a lot of ways I get the sense of, it almost feels like this is a story about privilege, unearned privilege, where someone, just through an accident of birth, has gotten great power, has gotten, rocketed into a very exclusive school, which to me kind of like reads as like, this could be an Ivy League school, as much more than it could be like, Harry Potter land, imagined, where, there's that kind of resentments of, and I can see that, of just like someone who, I'm fairly well off, middle class, but I'm not. I went to University of Victoria, which is a very nice university, but I'm not like, the American system of going to like an Ivy League, Oxford or Cambridge or Stanford, or all these kind of like that level, which, then plugs you into a bigger power structure. And you definitely get the sense from Ivy, the non-magical detective, that there's sort of that kind of a vibe there. So that's actually, I really like that part of the story. It's sort of using the kind of the idea of magic, but it's like it could be commenting on a variety of things. It could be commenting on economic status, as well as just, kind of race, which gets kind of connected with economic status as well. But just that kind of sense of unearned privilege going on. So within these chapters, this has been a big swath. So we get her connecting with her sister. And yes, she is pissed at her sister, because their mother got cancer, and she never came home, and she never tried to do anything. It's like, you didn't try and save her. It's like, you have all this power, you didn't save her. What the fuck? Kind of that kind of thing. And kind of, it's really good throughout this, because you find out, it's like, that's not how magic works. That to to actually try and take out the cancer in someone would be a matter of magically taking them apart, trying to keep them alive as you were trying to get all that cancer that, it's everywhere in the body out, and then trying to, while keeping them alive for hours upon hours upon hours, and then try and put them back together again. And indeed, later in the thing, she's talking to Miss Webb, this 86-year-old secretary of the school, who turns out she's retired but had been like one of the greatest magic healers in this world. And she said, I already told Tabitha that it was impossible. It's like, oh, Tabitha had gone to her at some point. You wonder if that's something she had gone to her when it happened, desperate to try and help her mother, and found out it couldn't. And you can kind of get the sense of somebody's shame of, I have all this power and I can't help my own mother, and not being able to face that, not being able to go back and face her mother with that sense of powerlessness, which is kind of a cool little bit of a thing there. We also have the thing with the sister of, she talks about, because the murder victim Sylvie, who, okay, now we get into all the things of what this is classic, all the things of a detective novel. It's like, yes, she's been hired to investigate a murder at her twin sister's school, and her twin sister could be a suspect. And it turns out that her twin sister was actually in a relationship with the woman who got killed, Sylvie. A clandestine relationship, which if they'd been discovered, they would have both been fired, because apparently there was some kind of bullshit rule against them staff members fraternizing, which seems kind of bizarre, but okay, we'll just take it as these are the rules of the school. So there's that like, well, Jesus Christ, she very much could be involved in this. And, and actually at the very end of the chapters I'm reading, she has a drunken conversation with her sister where she tells her stuff about her investigation, and then seems to suddenly get roofied, and her sister doesn't come home with her, which makes you think that Tabitha was going off to do something with that information and wanted to put her sister, her detective sister, out of the way. So there's that. She also, Ivy, gets in a relationship with the physical magic teacher at the school, Raoul, who is super handsome, and whom she seems to be pretending that she actually has, she's lying to and saying she has magical ability because she doesn't want to be judged of being a non-magical person. Like that would, so, she's not really giving the guy even the chance to condescend to her. She's lying to him, so this is not really going to be the basis of a great relationship. However, she's also having a personal sexual relationship with somebody else who could very easily be one of her suspects in this little petri dish of a school. So it's like, holy crap. And then we've also get introduced to the brother and the sister. There's a lot of family stuff here. Brother and the sister, Alexandria, who, if you call her Alex, fucking will take your head off, and Dylan, who I may have mentioned already, who discovered the body. And they are both pieces of work. Dylan thinks he is going to be the chosen one, the greatest magician and thing. It seems like the adults around him think that he's just kind of a little bit sad and pathetic. He may have a father who's been filling his head with shit like this of he's the destined one, and it's like, oh, you're going to get older and you're going to figure out it was all bullshit, and Jesus, that's going to really destroy you. And then there's her sister, Alexandria, who seems to be like super mega powered, magic powered, mean girl who wields an iron fist over everybody, who probably did some spray paint on a thing from one girl who crossed her, who tried to change her position in the group. So it now says Sammy is a slut all across lockers in some kind of incredibly complex spell that none of the teachers can actually take away. And Raoul has a story that she tried to blackmail him into giving her a better grade because and saying that's like, oh, that he was selling theory papers to the students, which I didn't do, he says in a very guilty way, which Ivy is very way too easy to let him off the hook on, because she's just totally hot for him. And when he refused, he immediately went to Martinez, yes. I think it's Martinez, that the headmaster, and told her that, she'd been trying to blackmail him, that she got slammed down for that. He said, and then a couple of months later, somebody did a super complicated spell to his car, turned it into glass, and then smashed it. And did it coolly enough, like he thinks it was her because it's that kind of complex, but she waited like 3 months just to kind of time it out. Now, at the same time in this, we're getting this whole thing of maybe that the murder victim Sylvia was providing birth control, and maybe more than birth control, to the kids, to female students, like a morning after pill, but that and it's Dylan and a girl whose name I can't remember, who says like, oh yeah, that's what we did, and I got that from her, and she kind of gives a very rote answer and gives kind of bullet points of, it was this, of the pills, potion, and so you said pills. It's like, no potion. And it's like Ivy looks it up on the kind of Google search, and she's like, the girl gave her the kind of word for word thing of after effects of morning after pills. It's like, so you're lying about this. And when she's talking to her friend, her sister Tabitha says that Alexandria was trying to blackmail them because she had burst in on them kind of making out, and said like, well, I want birth control pills for this girl, and Sylvie refused because it wasn't a morning after pill situation. It was like, you're too far along, that would like endanger the girl's life if you did that. So there's sort of that happening. And now in this conversation, this very last conversation at the end here, Tabitha let slip something like Sylvie was dying. It's like, now, was she dying? Was this something where she also had something terribly wrong with her, like a cancer? And was the murder a murder, or was the murder somebody trying to magically operate on her, and it going terribly wrong? And yeah. So yeah, that makes you think, like, did Tabitha try and do some kind of surgery on her, or did Mrs. Webb try and do surgery on them, and is bringing in Ivy as a kind of a patsy, as like, okay, you want the headmaster wants somebody to do the investigation, because it was just seen as Sylvie doing, because the whole thing with all this is the mage authorities, the mage cops have said that it was her messing around with magic she shouldn't have done, and it failed. But that seems to be totally against her character. She was very cautious with magic. Miss Webb's just describes kind of complex theoretical magic as like a box of cobras. And it's like, Ivy's like, wow, no one's actually ever been able to explain that to me that properly, that vividly, precisely to me before. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, I guess Tabitha wouldn't, because, yeah, Tabitha lives inside the box, which is interesting. So, yeah, we have a lot of kind of things. We've got the clueless detective who's like really emotionally involved, obviously, with her sister, but also really emotionally involved with Raoul. We've got Alexandria, who definitely is able to make people affect people's emotions, like manipulate people's emotions, cause super waves of fear and shame in people, or like or like uncontrollable desire to leave the room or stuff like that. And none of the none of the magical adults seem to be acknowledging this. Every time that Ivy brings it up, they just kind of change the subject, or they ignore it, or it just doesn't seem to glance off them, which is like interesting. Like, why is Ivy able to feel this, and know this is happening, and they aren't? Does that mean Ivy's magical in some way that they aren't, or is it just the fact that she's not swimming in the ocean mean that she can notice the water? I don't know. So yeah, that's where we're at. I'm enjoying myself as much as I have to roll my eyes at the whole, how enmeshed the detective is in the actual story, but emotionally, relationship wise, enmeshed in the story. But the thing is, I complain about that in one sense, but in another sense, it's like, if there wasn't all this emotional stuff, I'd be bored, because the actual mystery itself, I'm not that interested in putting it together. I'll be happy when the author puts it together at the end and hopefully tells it to me in an entertaining way, and go ooh ah, or go what about this, because then I'll think about it. But before that point, I've put forward a couple of theories myself now, but probably just flailing in the dark, to be honest. All right, I will leave it there. That was, holy crap, a lot of me talking about this book. But then again, I've read this. I did 1 to 5, and now I've done like 6 to 21, and then now we have just 22 to 28, so another short little stub at the end, hopefully. Good night.